in the world of pop culture, we have many, many different things to consider, but there will always be pop culture powerhouses, won't there, Mr.
Yes,
Zontal?
there will be. There's many, many characters out there that have stood the test of time.
Exactly. So we are dipping our toe into the new pop culture powerhouses with two, I think, rogue shouts because
This
they're not like primary main characters, but they are both iconic.
They are both iconic, but definitely rogue starters for this
Yeah.
series.
Yoda
Mm,
versus Hermione Granger.
honestly, I will put it out there. My pick here to kick things off for this series was Yoda.
Yeah.
And then you hit me back with, right, it's going to be Yoda versus Hermione. And it was the least thing I would have expected.
So I was sat there trying to think of one, and I turned to Jenna and I said, "Give me a fictional character." She went silent for 5 minutes. I went, Barney Stinson. And I went, doesn't really work for the podcast. And she's like, oh, okay. Neville Longbottom. I was like, cool, I'm going to do Hermione Granger.
No, Yoda versus Neville would have been just peak.
Yeah, but I feel like Hermione transcended the
No,
Harry
yeah,
Potter
no.
books where Neville did not.
I know what you mean.
So that's where we're at. As always, we've got 6 categories to help us wade through the sea of uncertainty.
Yes, we do.
Iconicness, individuality, quality of adaptations, legacy, relatability, and personal preference.
Yes.
So, starting with iconicness, I feel like as two 20-something-year-old white men, we definitely resonate more with Yoda, which is fucking outrageous thing to say, but we're going to feel like Yoda is more iconic.
Yeah, Yoda almost feels, this is going to sound weird to say, it's almost like that cool uncle.
Yes. But to get in Hermione's corner a little bit here, and I realized this when I wrote her down, Hermione might be the girl boss.
I mean, yeah. I feel like even though we don't necessarily, or we didn't necessarily like resonate like we do with Yoda with
We
Hermione.
weren't supposed to.
No, but there's like, I feel like anyone that watched Harry Potter and guys are like, this trio is like the iconic friend group, and it's like, oh shit, Hermione's that like friend that's like that girl in the group that is just like, we're all kind of scared of her because she's just like got her shit together.
She's independent. She doesn't
Yeah,
need her. She is here because she wants to be here. So don't piss her off because
we
then
all
she
kind
might
of
leave
wish
and
we
go
were
and
like
back.
her because we're all just
Yeah,
idiot guys.
exactly. I feel like, especially actually now, I think we've regressed a little bit from the Hermione, Annabeth, if you want to talk more Percy Jackson era of these female characters that are strong and independent and need to do their own thing. I feel like now a lot of the conversation is like, are we over egging it in a certain way and not actually getting it right? And then you get, obviously, because the other side have got worse as well. They're like, oh, they're a Mary Sue, they're a Mary Sue, they're a Mary Sue. Hermione wasn't perfect, but she was, I'm going to turn up, I'm going to study hard.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. That was her thing. She didn't get scared about anything. She was incredibly brave. Um, Hermione's an absolute icon.
I would agree.
And I would imagine for a lot of little girls out there, she was probably quite an inspirational figure growing up.
This is true. But then you have got Yoda.
Yeah, I mean, Hermione doesn't talk backwards with a really cool cadence.
And isn't like one of the most powerful Jedi.
Yes.
As soon as another version of that creature comes along, instantly they are named Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
I mean,
Here's the thing: we're looking at a character that is been around since the 60s and has always been beloved for being a little bit of a weirdo. Versus Hermione Granger, who, like I said, very rightfully so, is like an early version of the girl boss that women are kind of like, especially people of our age, is kind of like the girl that people aspire to be. in control of her own life. Yeah, cool. She's dating a himbo. To be fair, Ron Weasley might be one of the first people I ever remember being referred to as a himbo. I feel like Hermione is just that woman. Like, she is there.
Yeah.
She is getting her shit done. I genuinely think Iconicness is quite difficult to separate here. I probably lean more towards Yoda.
Just because he's been
purely
around
because of the
longer.
test of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here, to this day, everyone knows who Yoda is.
Yes. Yes.
Even if they haven't properly seen Star Wars. I feel like everyone could be like, oh, that's Yoda, or that's that Star Wars guy that talks funny. Like, yeah, I know what you mean.
Individuality. So, of course, this is more encompassing of how the character is designed, unique attributes about the person, rather than how unique is their personality per se.
I mean, Yoda, you could say he is one of two.
3.
3, there's Yabba, Yabby, Yabby, Gabby, Yabby. Oh yeah, sorry, one of 3.
Yeah, he's incredibly unique. His design is very, very rare.
Yep, and the fact that even the baby one was called Baby Yoda for the longest time because no one knows anything other than Yoda.
I mean, even now, people see Grogu and refer to him as Baby Yoda.
Yeah, they'll never shift that.
Because they got so ingrained so quickly, and like you said, the design is such a unique one in the Star Wars universe that when they didn't know what the child was called, instead of calling them the child, which is quite forgettable, they're like, "Of course, Baby Yoda."
I will say, kind of against Yoda is, yes, visually he's quite individual. There isn't many like him, but then you think about it, there is many Jedi. Some would argue that he's not the most powerful, but is definitely one of the most powerful. So powers, not too crazy unique.
And he was also very clearly inspired by when you think of the time period the original Star Wars was set, very clearly inspired by Asian monks and the such who live up in the hills and speak in riddles and stuff.
Yeah. So yes, visually he is individual. When you start to dig into him, I mean, take that away, he is just another Jedi in a big story of these special power users.
Yeah. Hermione is a British schoolgirl
who had Muggle parents.
Yeah, dentists. They're both quite boring.
Yep, pretty standard.
And I think that's what makes her better in a way, and that's what made her so relatable, which we'll get onto later, obviously. But I think the whole point is there's nothing obviously special about her. She's studious. She works hard.
At the most, she is the studious girl of the school, and you're
and that's not a knock on the character. It's just she's slightly weaker in this aspect. It's crazy how a character that feels at a base level not that individual has a personality build over the course of the stories. But I also feel like she's quite quintessentially British.
Yes, she is. And to be honest, I do think, well, yes, she is very classical, British studious schoolgirl. But her being the only girl in the main trio does give her a pretty strong individuality there. And does, in the setting of this, help her stand out.
Yes.
But yeah, she is very British compared to some of the other characters.
Yeah, I feel like Hermione to foreign nations probably feels more fictitious. Whereas I feel like anyone who went to school in England knows a Hermione Granger.
Yeah. Yep.
Quality of adaptations. So, in reality, for Hermione, we've got Emma Watson, who did the films,
Yep.
and then the actresses who've played Hermione in the West End.
Yeah, and then obviously, I guess you could class the book character as
Yes, of course.
original.
I would say the consistency of the character across the book, the films, and what I've heard about the stage show. It's basically impossible to get tickets for it.
I've seen The Curse of the Child. It's very good.
Have you?
Yes, it's very good.
Would you say that Hermione feels like the same character?
Yeah,
Would you
because
say it's consistent?
they've aged them up, and it's like, yeah, I would say they feel like I didn't go to it and be like, oh, they should have got the actors and actresses. Like, it felt like I was still watching Hermione be played.
Awesome. And I will say, like, obviously, it was the role that made Emma Watson's career. She's stunning in that role. All I've ever heard about the stage show is how phenomenal it is. So I have to assume that the actress who's played Hermione, because Hermione played quite a big role in that story.
Yeah,
to my
and I'm not
understanding.
sure if like different runs have had different people, but
Yeah.
the character that is portrayed in that story is still very much Hermione.
So I would have to say Hermione's got a very, very solid quality of adaptation.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty well agreed that from book to film, each character was well adapted
Yes.
and kind
absolutely.
of well chosen to suit that character. Yoda's quality of adaptation, I mean, we've got, I guess you could class, we have got him from the original films. That's kind of where it started. Then you've got books and comic versions, which maybe have fleshed out a bit more of his abilities. And then we've seen him in
prequels and Clone Wars.
Yeah, I guess then you can go like prequels, Clone Wars. Has he been in any games?
Lego Star Wars.
The Lego games, yeah. I feel like wherever he's been, you're like, this is Yoda.
I would argue
Oh.
that Yoda in the original trilogy is incomprehensibly different to the Yoda we see in later projects. I still to this day find how weird and wacky Yoda is in episode 5 and episode 6 really strange. Now, don't get me wrong, if that was the original trilogy that came out, it's like that adaptation isn't bad. But when you then see how like thoughtful and noble and respectful he is during the High Republic,
yeah, true,
to like this weird little
do you know
hermit frog, it feels weird.
Because obviously now it's so hard with Yoda and the amount of Star Wars content we've both consumed. Like, we think of his whole story and like in his other stuff, you forget that like he kind of became crazy old man.
Yeah, and I don't think that fits.
Well, it's like it's just never been, that transition's not been shown to us.
Yeah.
So it is very jarring.
I don't like, and like even if you go for the argument of, well, he like holed himself up on this dark side planet for 20 years, I still don't buy that would drive him crazy. I don't.
I mean,
I could see Yoda meditating for 20 years literally inside a Sith holocron and still being mentally stable.
I think it was meant to be like the way they've tried to play it off, I think, in extra media is the toll of all Order 66 and all the Jedi and stuff has like changed his mental. But yeah, I do agree actually. I would say his adaptation to further media outside the original trilogy, I think he was used very well in all of that. And we actually got a very good Yoda. But then when you compare
it doesn't line up.
When you compare it back, it is very jarring.
Do you know what I think would have made more sense? And I'm not saying we should change Star Wars because it's not that big of an issue. Like, let's be completely clear here. But I think for the adaptations to be more in line, he should have been a bit of a dark horse on the Jedi Council rather than the head of the Jedi Council, who was a little bit more wacky and out there all the time. just a little bit. They still trusted him as a Jedi Master, but they were like, he's a little bit kooky, so we're not going to let him be in charge.
I mean, yeah, or you just needed something that, like, post Order 66 showed that, I don't know, Sith mentally attacked him and it, like, changed him. Or, like, he went searching for answers and, like, went on some weird trip and it caused him to go crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
it
there
just
needs to be
doesn't feel
some.
even.
Yeah, there's no bridge from the two versions we get. So I get where you're coming
Yeah.
from with it.
And especially when we consider how long these creatures live, like his species lives, 20 years is nothing.
Yeah, so
For a
yeah.
creature as old as that to descend into such madness in 20 years is like us having one bad week and just literally bouncing off the walls like a madman.
I mean, I would happily do that sometimes.
But you know, like
Yeah, no, I
that's
get
one
what
of
you
the bigger
mean.
issues I have with that, because when you track it alongside like his lifespan and stuff like that, you do
Mm,
just find yourself going, that's a little bit strange. I'm not
yeah,
sure
no.
if I, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I think purely from the perspective of quality and consistency of adaptation, I don't think that lines up quite right.
Yeah, I think it's funny when you look at it like in this context of this category, it's like it doesn't line up with the original media of him. But in a way, what we actually did get after the original films is a lot better version of Yoda.
Yes.
But yeah, they kind of shifted it, but we have to take it as we have to look at this as like how compared to the original, how well has it been added to?
Yes. Legacy.
Hmm. I mean,
Very strong contenders on both sides for legacy.
yes, I would say uh, Yoda has had quite a strong impact on a certain way that everyone will speak, and
Yes.
instantly you know they are speaking like Yoda.
Yeah. The legacy of Hermione can't be understated, though.
No.
We look at characters like Annabeth from Percy Jackson,
Hmm.
and like that style of character, this independent girl who is there along on the venture as an equal, not as just a love interest. Which I
Mm.
think for the long time there was always a girl involved in the story, but they were always written just as a love interest.
Yep.
Now it's like a no, they are their own character, and there might be a love interest there, but that is secondary. Um, I think without Hermione Granger, there's a lot less quality in the written portrayal of women.
I can see that. I definitely feel like these have legacies in different ways.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
it's funny. It's like you're saying, Hermione's definitely had a strong legacy there of an impact into like how she's changed the portrayal of lead women in these stories.
Yes.
Whereas Yoda's become more just a pop culture legacy of like, oh, we all know we talk a funny way when everyone knows you're talking like Yoda. Um, Also, I guess in a way, going back to like the whole Grogu who's been introduced in the Mandalorian and the new stuff, everyone immediately referred to him as Baby Yoda,
Yeah.
and it's like okay, there's a pretty strong legacy there, of just visual legacy.
I think when we're talking about legacy here, we're talking about Hermione has had like a legitimate impact on the way women are handled in literature,
Mm,
whereas Yoda is a literal pop culture icon
yes.
in a way that very few characters ever can be, just because of his visual uniqueness
Hmm.
and how ingrained he is in like 3 generations, 4 generations of children.
Yeah, exactly.
Relatability.
Well, I don't know about you, but I fully relate to being a little hermit on a planet who speaks in riddles.
Yeah, no. I feel like as a gamer, we do inherently live that life.
We-
We are these little weird fuckers in our cave who speak in riddles. No, no, that's based. That's
Uh,
incredibly based. Um, Obviously, it would be incredibly stupid for
mhm.
us to try and claim we fully understand how relatable Hermione Granger is. She
Agreed.
was not written for me and you.
No.
What I can say with confidence is, being the age we are, having grown up in England during the height of Harry Potter,
Hmm.
and I assume you've spoken to women in your life, Harry.
I have.
I know that Hermione Granger has been a big part of probably a lot of young women's
Mhm.
self-realization and understanding that they have a bit of autonomy and fighting the system and going, no, fuck you, I'm gonna be me.
Yeah.
That's how I've always perceived it.
I mean, while we can't directly relate to like being like Hermione, I still feel like there's a ton of relatability we understand of this is exactly like we've spoke earlier, like British high school. There are many people like this that we know from when we were that age, and it's like that whole story is very relatable. So I think even all the characters in Harry Potter, there's a lot of relatability there for us,
This way,
especially.
we remember seeing how horribly in certain arcs of the films and books Hermione was treated by the characters for being smart. Like when Victor Crumb
Mm-hmm.
was interested in her and the way the other girls treated her for that.
Yep.
We all remember the smart girl at school who didn't take a lot of crap, who was treated horribly because they were unapologetically themselves.
Yep.
I think, although like we said, we can't relate directly to Hermione because again, she wasn't written for us. There is no way that is not a relatable character to so many people. Like we said, to a British person, Hermione doesn't feel that unique a character
No.
because we all knew a Hermione.
Yeah. Whereas I don't know a small green alien who has a laser stick and speaks in riddles.
Legally, I have to say I don't know one either.
For Earth's safety.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you're completely right. Yoda is relatable in certain ways.
Yeah.
He's put forward as kind of this wisdomous character. The characters in the films kind of look up to in like a fathery, uncley way. And he's supposed to like replicate that feeling of when your uncle, your father, or a paternal figure in your life gave you some encouragement and thoughts of wisdom, which does make him a bit relatable in that sense. But
Yeah.
that's not the key part of Yoda. The key part of Yoda is look at that little green dude, isn't he funny?
Yeah, exactly.
Personal preference.
Are we doing this
Yoda.
as if we have to get rid of one?
Just which character do you prefer?
Honestly,
because I don't want to get rid of either of these characters.
True. I think I'll be honest. Mine is very heavily biased in the fact of how much I love Star Wars.
I think it's a shock to anyone that our personal preference be Yoda. Like we said, Hermione's not written for us. We can appreciate her from a literary storytelling point of view, how important she is culturally and everything. But Yoda was written more for us than Hermione was. Yoda was written for the little kid who wants to laugh at the little alien dude.
Yeah, and the madman does backflips with a lightsaber and absolutely schools people.
Exactly.
How can you not love him?
But do not let it fall on deaf ears how much I love my girl Hermione. She is the GOAT.
Oh yeah, like just Hermione and that trio and Harry Potter is like a staple for at least British pop culture. But we do have to pick just one pop culture powerhouse.
So let's go back through the scoring here and see how we do.
Yes.
Iconicness, I feel like has to be a draw.
Yeah.
Maybe just leaning towards Yoda, but if anything, I'd be more comfortable with a draw.
I can be happy with a draw.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Individuality, I can give to Yoda. Hermione is not inherently that individual and unique. But
Agreed.
that is why she's stronger in other areas. Quality of adaptations, I feel like needs to go to Hermione, as we discussed.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Every time we've seen Hermione in any way, it feels like the same character. whereas Yoda doesn't always.
Yeah, and book to other media was done well, whereas Yoda's original version, fleshed out, is very different. So it's kind of like, okay.
Legacy.
It's tough because they've got legacy in two very different ways.
Yoda's legacy is very much a pop culture legacy. I feel like Hermione has had like a lasting cultural impact on little girls everywhere. And while they are both very different legacies, I feel like the one that has directly like affected people in a positive way.
More important than others.
Yeah, do you know
I
what
know
I
what
mean?
you
Like,
mean.
Would you rather these little girls never have this figure to look up to, or would you rather the little green alien dude just doesn't get remembered as fondly?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like one is more important.
There is definitely one that is more important, and it has to be Hermione, I think.
Relatability.
I mean, Hermione again.
Although Hermione wasn't written for us, a British child I can relate to closer than Green Alien.
Yeah, agreed.
And personal preference we gave to Yoda.
We did.
So that makes it 3-2 to Hermione.
Okay.
I can live with that.
I'm fine with that.
And we do also
can
have
see
to
Hermione.
There's a bit of British tax here, which
there is a bit,
which makes a very even matchup. I feel fall towards the British character.
Yes, there is definitely some British tax here, and some. While Yoda is very memorable, it kind of doesn't go much further than his funny speaking. Let's be honest.
Exactly. But fear not, ladies and gentlemen.
There is
no bracket this time.
No.
Which means Yoda can come back. It's not like in previous iterations where it's been a bracket and a really cool character goes out in the first round and you never see them again. We're going to go through loads of iterations of Pop Culture Powerhouses with characters from Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and Marvel and DC and Harry Potter and any other nerdy fictional world we want to. And you will probably see characters more than once over the course of this segment's lifetime. So let us know down below who you'd like to see us compare.
Yes.
Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next week.
See you in the next one.